radio station for this week's episode of American DA Live. On today's show, host Jack Patty and Assistant Commonwealth Attorneys Luanna Redcorn, Dan Laren, and Victim Services Director Mary Houlihan, along with Detective Chris Russell, will discuss the case of Patricia Hacker. In July 2010, the Lexington Police Department received a complaint call from the Adult Protective Services. Patricia Hacker had taken the young woman who she cared for that was mentally challenged to Divas Gentlemen's Club to be a stripper. Stay tuned for more details on this case.
Good morning. It is 9:07, 7 after 9, as we welcome you into American DA Live. And Commonwealth Attorney Ray Larson is off this week, but we have Assistant Commonwealth Attorney Luanna Redcorn with us. Good morning, Luanna.
Good morning, Jack.
Tell us who you brought with you.
Well, today in the studio we have Assistant Commonwealth Attorney Dan Laren, the Director of our Victim Services, Mary Houlihan, and from the Lexington Police Department, Detective Chris Russell.
And tell us, good morning to you folks.
Good morning.
Tell us about the case we're going to talk about this morning.
Well, today's case is a rather alarming case. It's about the exploitation of a vulnerable adult. The exploitation was done by a person hired to be her care provider, who basically signed her up to be a dancer at a local, quote, gentleman's club. And we're going to talk about how vulnerable adults are protected, how those kinds of cases are investigated, and specifically what happened in the case in which Patricia Hacker was charged with that crime.
Okay. Go right ahead and tell us.
Well, I want to start talk a little bit, Jack, just to talk about vulnerable adults and the Division of Police and how they investigate those kind of crimes. Chris, tell me a little bit about the unit that you are a part of.
Well, I'm actually part of the Special Victims section of the Division of Police, and that unit consists of crimes against children, domestic violence, sexual assault, and the elder abuse unit. I am the elder abuse detective, and I investigate all crimes against victims who are over the age of 18 and have been diagnosed with a mental or physical dysfunction.
So we have one detective that does those types of cases.
Yes,
is that
ma'am.
right?
Yes, I typically investigate just about every type of crime as long as the victim meets those specific criteria.
Okay. Tell us, how did you become involved in the case?
One of the Adult Protective Services social workers, Danny, had actually contacted me and had emailed me a copy of what the cabinet refers to as a 115. The agency Ms. Hacker was working for had received the allegation, and as per Kentucky law, they had reported it to Adult Protective Services. When the social worker received the report, he immediately contacted me and emailed me a copy of it so we could start the investigation.
Okay, so let me get this clear then. The report actually comes from the agency that employed Ms. Hacker.
That's
Which was
correct.
what agency?
It was an SCL provider here in town.
Okay. What was the name of that?
It was Support Source.
Okay, so.
Are there a lot of places like that?
There are several. There are a large number of providers here in town. It's one agency in particular I know has at least 70 houses where individuals live.
But they self-reported. I mean, they
Yes,
reported
ma'am.
that someone has come to us and said something's not going on right with one of our people.
Mhm.
Okay. And how do they make that report?
They have a form they fill out that's a state registered form from the cabinet, and they actually send that form to Central Intake for the Bluegrass region.
Okay, and Central Intake is Social Services.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so and then Social Services, are they required to let you know, or could they just go off and do the investigation themselves?
They notify my office. I think they actually send a copy to your office and to the Attorney General's office as well for every one of these cases that comes in.
Okay. The investigation then is done by your agency, by the
Yes,
police
ma'am.
department. Okay. So you get the information. What was the allegation?
The allegation was Sarah Hamilton had stated that after Ms. Hacker had quit, that Ms. Hacker had taken her to one of the local gentlemen's clubs and had gotten her employment there and had taken her there to dance on several occasions.
So the victim in this case reported to the people that employed Ms. Hacker that this had happened?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, and what was the next step then? You get this allegation, a pretty serious allegation.
And when the social worker contacted me, we both read the report while we were on the phone, and said, this allegation is so severe, we didn't know for sure that this could have happened. So the very first step was I simply loaded up from my office with another detective, and we went to the gentleman's club.
Okay.
And asked to speak to the owner, and asked to see the stack of applications. And I gotta say, I was extremely shocked when About 5 minutes into it, I found the application with her ID photo on it.
The ID photo of the victim.
Of the
Is that
victim,
right?
yeah, it was
Okay.
photocopied onto the front of the application.
So the application at least had been submitted in her real name,
That's correct, yeah.
with her real identification.
What was the nature of this victim's disability
She was,
and extent of it?
she was diagnosed with a mental deficiency. And I would say moderate impairment at best.
I think, Dan, I think actually in the course of the investigation obtained some records so we could know exactly what the degree of her disability was. And Dan, can you tell us a little bit about that?
I did. She was diagnosed as mildly mentally retarded. Her IQ was estimated at 65. She had a number of other mental disorders, paranoid psychotic disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, and issues with impulse control were the specific issues that were identified in her diagnosis.
And how old was she at the time that this application was submitted?
21 years of age.
So she's a 21-year-old woman.
Was that last year?
Right. It was last June.
Yeah.
In the summer of 2000.
Yeah.
To learn more, tune in every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on News Talk 590.